And recording. So, a few days ago, I logged on to YouTube, and what should pop up but a brand new release from Ningen. And I love them. I love them so much. Japanese metal band. It's been around 30 plus years. I've reacted to them a bunch of times on this channel now. For whatever reason, I just haven't stopped to like on my own listen to stuff by them, to their albums by itself, like all the way through. I keep saving the reactions for the channel, the listens for the channel. At some point, I'm probably just gonna have to go and listen to everything on my own. But this is kind of a treat. Like saving it, it makes it more special. Like, oh, I have to save it so I can record myself. It's going to be a special occasion kind of thing. It's a treat. It feels good. Uh, when I saw it, I immediately wanted to record a video. I just didn't have time, and I think it's been like 8 or 9 days since it's been up. And given what's happening in the world right now, the title of the track, I might have a lot to say, but who knows? Let's see, we'll go this way. Oh, it's called Farewell to the World. And this was uploaded 8 days ago. And it's an 8-minute video, so synchronicities. Um, Closed captions unavailable. So I might have to, after this video, do a search to see what the lyrics translate to, if there's no translation here on the screen. But let's listen. Go! I'm glad that there's English translations there at the bottom. It saves me the effort of having to search, and also having them there as it's playing. It's more effective, just because you're able to understand the words as you see how the music is, the movement of the music, um, and you see how it corresponds one to the other. The build up was cool. I liked that a lot. There, he said the was it a blood or a tear? I'm gonna have to look on Mother Mary's cheek, which is like very Christian. Farewell to the world. There's all this fire. There's it just looks like hell. Uh, all these eyes motif. And then those gates in the background make me think more like a Shinigami's coming for you, and obviously one of them is dressed like a Shinigami. Uh, I posted an update for my stuff, and not to sidetrack or promote myself because I don't want to, but I used a tarot card for death to sort of use it as promotion with what I was doing, and the deck, which I'm not a connoisseur of that. I don't know too much. I just know basics that death means change. It doesn't necessarily mean uh, oh, you're going to die or this is catastrophe or anything. It just means a death of a way of thinking or a change in viewpoint, that kind of thing. So those eyes, perspective, perception. Because he's saying in his adolescence that he had, or they're saying in the adolescence that you have all these sort of ambitions and goals, and you're seeing how the world isn't necessarily adhering to the dreams and thoughts that you had when you were younger. You're coming to that realization that things are much harder and darker than they should be or could be. I almost made a joke there when I said harder and darker. Yeah. So when he's saying farewell to the world, like initially I thought, oh, like suicide? Is he so unhappy with how things didn't live up to his expectations that he's just saying farewell, it's not worth it, goodbye, and suicide? Or is it more farewell to this world that I had in my head? Like this thought process of how I thought the world was going to be. Farewell to that naivety. And now you got to be realistic and just think about living in the actual reality. And obviously, fire burns things. If it goes away, you burn it away from yourself. You're changing yourself because that thing that you thought before, or that way of thinking, is no longer going to be there if it burns away. So you can only change and hopefully grow. So farewell to that way of thinking. Are those TV screens? And those eyes aren't even looking at it? Or is it just... Continue. Let's backtrack. Background is changed. Oh! pause it again. I know it's soon to pause it, but that whole section there was much more positive sounding than I'm used to from them. Since I generally, when I think of them, it has to deal with like a deep, dark, dank kind of terror and like horror. So this sort of like longing for like a positivity and togetherness is interesting to hear. As a contrast, especially from the beginning, there's lots of galloping in the guitar playing. So like a horse gallop, you're moving forward. You're ever moving forward. Uh, he said something about like hopefully this sounds like farewell to the world, and then here this sounds so positive, like you're in heaven, like the things he wants are heavenly, are very good. So it's kind of like a transition from the state of mind that you were in to the other. It's kind of like the death of a life going from hell to heaven almost, which is kind of funny to think about. But when he said that everyone like melting together, my mind kind of went off into Evangelion and how in the ending, um, everyone's mind kind of like melded together so that they could feel each other's, build empathy for one another. And yeah, it was interesting. Which that's a dark, dark anime. And I probably watched it at the wrong time because I was very much depressed when I saw it. So it just cycled down, spiraled down. Yeah, this is the farewell to the world. I thought it was gonna be more suicidal in the approach. So the lyrics seem to be more about togetherness and wanting to build something new that's good, and saying goodbye to the things that haven't worked. So farewell to that world versus just you dying. Huh. at the end there, and then it comes back hard to re-emphasize what it is that they were saying. Let's see. Do we have the lyrics all in English? We do not. Let's see. Ningen is farewell to the world. Let's go English. Lyrics. There's a lull here in the video. I felt it was kind of, given the title of the track and what's going on in the world, that this would be very apropos to listen to right now. It all just kind of made sense to me. Uh, and he seemed at the end there to talk about like the conflicts, the war, the rising like hatred that people feel to one another, and how good it would be for everyone to go into the light, and for everyone just to stop. And how you could think of like global warming, and how that has made it so like the bee population is going away. Everything, there's lots of drought and fire, weather changes that makes it so that vegetation isn't growing the way it was before. How everything seems to be kind of dying out and drying out. So it seems like whether our mind changes or not, the world is going away on its own because of what's been happening. So one way or another, you're saying farewell to the world. And also, that doesn't have to be a bad thing, because once a moment happens, it's gone forever. You're constantly moving forward, you're constantly changing anyway. So there's not always a good. It's not always good to just think about how things were and to wallow in that kind of nostalgia, because again, things constantly change and you have to move along with them. But the seasons change too, so you go from hot to cold. Invariably you go from happiness to sadness, and back and forth and back and forth. So we're just in the phase of life right now where things seem really bad. And if you wallow in that, things, you'll get stuck in it, and things will never get better. So the point is to search for the light, kind of like they're saying, in order to move and continue that cycle to make things better. But I have the lyrics pulled up here. Farewell world as opposed to farewell to the world. So this might not be exact. I coughed especially loud so you could hear it. Bottomless darkness, the world at its last moments, like on the brink of war. False love, blood running down the Virgin Mary's cheek. False love. Yeah, if there's a conflict, it's generally because there's a misunderstanding, and what you thought was true isn't actually true. So the false love. I want to run away. I want to get out. The days of my youth, my dreams are all now far away. You think of like a midlife crisis, what that generally means. Because I'm of that age now. Obviously, they're much older. Mm. But you have certain expectations when you're young. I'm gonna be a fire truck, but that's an inanimate object. You can't be that. Vroom vroom siren. Um, Kids are dumb, but you have all these expectations when you're little about what you're going to do with your life, not taking into account that everyone else has their goals and things conflict with each other. So Venn diagrams, that shared center where everyone is happy, is a thin sliver, and you're always bouncing around that Venn diagram and hitting this person's happiness, then this person's happiness, then this person's happiness. But each time that happens, you're hitting this person's sadness, and this person's sadness, and this person's sadness. Teachings of justice are nowhere to be found. Again, the world's in a state of war. There's so much wrong with society in general, um, and it's a constant struggle. It's never gonna be perfect, so, but right now it's especially bad. Fists of righteousness are nowhere to be found. No one, no one wants to be. Everyone wants change, but no one wants to be the one to do the change. Everyone wants somebody else to do it for them. Praises of freedom are nowhere to be frowned. Nowhere to be found. Signs of peace are nowhere to be found. So I say, farewell, world. He's saying he wants to be the one that does it. Farewell, the days I held dear. Let's go forth to seek the light. He's essentially calling on you to be the change, be the light, um, to be the fist of righteousness, um, for you to be the freedom and be the peace. If you don't like what's happening in the world and you want things to change, you want things to change, you have to be the change. Otherwise, you can't rely on um, other people to be the catalyst of your hopes and dreams. They can only be the catalyst of their own hopes and dreams. And again, that Venn diagram is a tiny sliver. Something that makes you happy might make someone else sad, and vice versa. So if you want things to be a certain way, you have to be the one that affects that change. Bottomless swamps, the prophesized age. That sounds a little too religious for my liking. The prophesized age, but bottomless swamps. Again, if you focus too much on the negative, you just spiral down into it. So even though you're on a wheel, wheels can get flat tires. um, and you can just spiral down into like a swamp of feeling really bad, and it can feel like a quicksand or something where the more you struggle, the faster you fall in. Where was I? The prophesized age. That's the contrast. So you the un bottomless pit and prophesized age. You think of like heaven. So like it's just contrasting the gap. Oh, burp again. Hammer of punishment. Hell. The heavens and earth are raging. I want to cry out. I'm at my limit. That's kind of like a not necessarily depression, but you're the edge that you get to where you're just like I'm at my limit. Like it is, there's a breaking point. The days of my memories, the days of my past. Where are you now? Smiles of babies are nowhere to be found. No one seems to be happy. And babies, the new generation. It's a metaphor for the new generation because you're the life that's being had right now, the old generation is still in charge, and it's not what the new generation wants. Because again, things progress. You have to the galloping of the guitars. You have to constantly move forward. So you can't stagnate and stay in a swamp. Politics. Um, Otherwise, those babies will never smile. Tryst of maidens are nowhere to be found. Well, ambitions of young boys are nowhere to be found. Um, they're feeling hopeless, like they don't have, like they can't accomplish anything because everything is so messed up. Vows of chastity are nowhere to be found. Well, one could argue that that's a good thing. Hmm. So I scream, farewell, world. Farewell to the world. Farewell, the days I held dear. Let us go forth to seek the light. We also romanticize the past. So all those thoughts and dreams that we had, you can think of it as saying, well, obviously I came up with those dreams because the world was a good place. Whereas at that time, you're actually kind of ignorant of what's happening because the smiles of baby. At that point, you're smiling and you're a baby. And you just have your thoughts and your dreams, your hopes. They kind of grow and like a seed grows into a tree, a tree. Ah, what? I'm drunk. Um, but you are ignorant. So as the older you get, the more you start to realize that the world is sort of breaking apart, and yeah, things aren't necessarily the way you thought they were. So like every generation goes through that, and them being of a certain age, it's like a wisdom that they're passing down. I think a new era. I skipped a line or two. I think a limitless love, a forever ending paradise. The world is what you make it. So in a new era, a limitless love. If you approach it with love and kindness, um, everything's reciprocal. What you put into the system is what comes out. Ideally, so let us go forth to seek the light, a new era. So that's a possibility. You don't like what's happening in the world, uh, shine into it with positivity, and hopefully, in that prism that is life, the light that shines out of it will also be positive. A wonderful world, a boundless horizon, an eternally blooming garden. It's a heaven, metaphor for heaven. People remain people. People are people. So why should it be? That's the second time I make that joke. Um, People remain people, staying as they are. Love remains love, holding each other, melting together. So there's a difference of opinion that people generally will have because they come up in certain circumstances versus this person who has their other circumstances. So eventually they're going to clash. But in essence, they're the same. They're just people. They'll react based off the circumstances. So if you move this person into this circumstance and this person into that one, they're going to react as the other might. So, like, that's what you have to keep in mind. It's an understanding of what people are and how the way they react is a reflection of how you would react. So keep that in mind when you try to judge somebody else to kind of prevent conflicts. That it it all just so happens that we're all born into certain um, elements of society. It's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just different. That's spontaneity of life, staying as they are. Um, yeah, and if you're in that position, it's hard. It's also necessary because if you're born in a place where there's lots of heat and sun, you develop melanin in your skin to deal with it. So if you move somewhere else, you still have that melanin. I know that's a weird metaphor, weird example to use, but like that's a physical, biological thing, just as opposed to the rain of blood, a world full of strife, war. People in silence with their heads hung. They won't say anything, they're accepting it. What do they wait for? You want they feel like it's something they can't change. It's something that is just part of life, and they're one person, and the thing is so big they can't do anything about it. So they keep their heads hung, and they remain silent because they feel like they can't affect change. What do they wait for? Because that's the thing. Change can't happen unless the ball starts rolling. So at the top of the mountain, that snowball might seem really small, but once it careens down that mountain at the end, it's a gigantic boulder. So, what do they say? The journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. I want to start running. I want to take off flying. The days of nostalgia, traces of a dream that won't return. You feel hopeless. The figures of beasts are nowhere to be found. The shapes of wild birds are nowhere to be found. Everything's going away. The sounds of winged insects are nowhere to be found. The green of leaves and grass is nowhere to be found. Everything is dying. Things are disappearing. We're more and more alone. So I swear, farewell, world, farewell, the days I held dear. Let us go forth to seek the light. Fix it. Let's fix it. Farewell, world, farewell, the days I held dear. Farewell, world, farewell, the days I held dear. So this is much more. Oh shit, was my face being blocked off this entire time? Ha! um, so this is much more hopeful and positive sounding than a lot of their other tracks that I've heard. Which again, I've made this one of my previous videos. I kind of mentioned that when you're young and you don't know how to express yourself, like a lot of the music that you hear from like a first album is generally very angry. People just like so much wrong. I want to say things. I'm going everywhere with my emotions just because like I want to get it out. I want to get everything out. I kind of know what I want to say, but I don't know how to express it. So, anger, emotions. And then the older you get, the more you're able to focus and shift the perspective of instead of shotgun blasting like a spray of bullets everywhere, you sort of get the precision of like a knife that just cuts a specific point. So you're more able to express yourself and say the things you want to say. So the anger that someone feels, or the loneliness, or the horror that someone feels, the terror that they express, ends up just being like an expression of hopefulness and wanting things to change. So farewell to all that rage and that caused the suffering, and more just like, well, if I'm suffering and I don't want to suffer anymore, what can I do about it? And how do we move forward? That's the farewell. So that hopefully you arrive at happiness. That's where my head is at right now. Great song.